A poem in honor of Shahzada Qasim from his perspective. Please read it aloud, salawat. O youth, hear me, my tragedy. When you mourn and remember, hear my story, my glory, and help me live forever. On that day, my uncle taught me, live like Ali, die like Hussein. O youth, when you recall me and for me weep, the lessons of my story in your tears keep. I saw my uncle and alone wouldn't sleep. I tell you the tears he shed, angels would sweep. O youth, known by two names, I was left in awe. I'm young, but I can't explain the things I saw. For years, for a man named Ali, tears would pour. I saw a pride that never died. We were the sons of Ali. In all of us, they all loved us. And this every day I'd see a promise that lived inside me, a pride my actions would maintain. On that day, my uncle taught me, live like Ali, die like Hussein. I was young when they killed my father Hassan. Every eye would look at me as an orphan, all alone, and came to wipe my head, a man. Now he's all alone, and to help him I can. When I was young, to me he'd come and he'd become my father. What has become? He has no one. He's called for a helper. What kind of son would Qasim be if all alone he would remain? On that day, my uncle taught me, live like Ali, die like Hussein. I live my life in my grandfather's shadow. From my morals, my love for Ali they know. And on that day, his words to the world I show. Yesterday has gone, uncertain's tomorrow. Work within the world, he would say, as you'll live forever, and as you'll die tomorrow, work toward the hereafter. Today's my day, I'll work for me to be known as Qasim the Slain. On that day, my uncle taught me, live like Ali, die like Hussein. My uncle had a love of Ali so grand, for being his son, he was led to this land. All his sons, the name Ali on their hearts band. He'd name Ali if he had 1,000. I saw Hussein, he loved this name, it left my uncle entranced. A young lion, I embraced him, and with the great name I pounced. Ali's zeal flowed inside me. I'll make the enemy's blood rain. On that day, my uncle taught me, live like Ali, die like Hussein. My grandfather of this day, he was aware. He knew who'd die for Hussein and how and where. If he's watching, how can I into life stare? How can I live if he wanted me to be killed here? I'd cry out, pretending my voice was thunder. I am the hero of Uhud and brother. I'd pretend I was the one struck on Qadr. So young, but I wanted to be like Haider. So young, and they still feared me. I hope my grandfather's proud. I imagined I was Ali, leaving in all brothers' crowd. You're the father of dust. Accept me as one of its grains. On that day, my uncle taught me, live like Ali, die like Hussein. O youth, on that day I learnt many lessons, and because of it my name and hearts glistens. When they realized I was one of Hassan's orphans, their sword called out my name, and death it listens. Swords cut through me, death embraced me. Arrows at me they'd propel. I was murdered and massacred. I learnt this from my uncle, and perhaps Hussein learnt from me. His throat cut vein to vein. On that day my uncle taught me, live like Ali, die like Hussein. Salawat.
दुरूद भेजिए मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि मोहम्मद व मौलाना इजाज़त एक और सलवात भेजिए मोहम्मद वाले हाथों पे شاہ دین کے دم توڑتے ہیں اصغر ہاتھوں پہ شاہ دین کے دم توڑتے ہیں اصغر کس یاس و بے کسی سے دم توڑتے ہیں اصغر گردن سے خون رواں ہے ہونٹوں پہ ننھی جاں ہے آنکھیں پھرا پھرا کے دم توڑتے ہیں اصغر ہاتھوں پہ شاہ دین گھبرا کے ننھا سید شہ سے لپٹ گیا ہے باہیں گلے میں ڈالے دم توڑتے ہیں اصغر باہیں گلے میں ڈالے دم توڑتے ہیں عالم ہے جاں کنی کا چہرہ اتر گیا ہے بے کس پدر کے آگے دم توڑتے ہیں اصغر بے کس پدر کے آگے دم توڑتے ہیں اصغر چہرہ اتر گیا ہے من کا بھی ڈھل گیا ہے لپٹے ہوئے پدر سے دم توڑتے ہیں اصغر لپٹے ہوئے پدر سے دم توڑتے ہیں اصغر دیوڑی سے جب کے پوچھا بچے کا حال مانے رو کر کہا یہ شے نے دم توڑتے ہیں اصغر رو کر کہا یہ شے نے دم توڑتے ہیں اصغر ہاتھوں پہ شاہ دین کے درود بھیجے محمد والے اللہم صلی اللہ
صلوات بر محمد وآل محمد کس لخت جگر کی شادی ہے کس نور نظر کی شادی ہے اللہ بلا کے جنگل میں یہ کس رشک خمر کی شادی ہے اور آئے ہیں باراتی شادی میں پہنے ہوئے کیوں کالے کپڑے مرجھایا ہوا ہے ہر چہرہ یہ کس گل تر کی شادی ہے اللہ بلا کے جنگل میں قاسم جو ہم شبی ہے جناب امیر تھا اس وجہ سے وہ غیرت مہر منیر تھا اور عاشق جمال شہ بے نظیر تھا پروانہ چراغ رسول خدیر پروانہ چراغ رسول خدیر اکبر سے کہتا تھا کہ چچا تو امام ہے اے بھائی جان ہم تو تمہارے غلام اے بھائی جان ہم تو تمہارے غلام یہ کہتے تھے کہ تم تو میرے دادا کی شان ہو دل ہو جگر ہو آنکھ ہو بھائی کی جان ہو اے بھائی جان کیا تمہاری خوبی بیان ہو حضرت حسن کی طرح سے شیریں زبان حضرت حسن کی طرح سے شیریں زبان پھر پیار سے وہ ہاتھوں کو گردان میں ڈال کے کہتے تھے قتل ہوں گے ہم 18 کہتے تھے قتل ہوں گے ہم 18 سال کے فوج جفا سے اتنے میں تیر جفا چلے اور یہاں سے پیشوائی کو اہل جفا اہل وفا چلے آئے خدا کی سمت سے سوئے خدا چلے کہتے تھے شاہ زور سے مقدر سے کیا کہتے تھے شاہ زور مقدر سے کیا چلے قاسم رہے اور اکبر و عباس رہ گئے 70 دو تن میں 3 جوان پاس رہ گئے اس غم سے جو حسین کی حالت ہوئی تباہ، تب ہاتھ پکڑے خیمے میں قاسم کو لائے شاہ زینب سے، پھر یہ بولے امام فلک پناہ، درپیش ہم کو آج ہے دو بے قصو، درپیش ہم کو آج ہے دو بے قصو تقریب سوگواروں میں دولہا دلہن کی ہے زینب ٹوٹوئے وصیت اسار، زینب ٹوٹوئے وصیت اسار کی ہے، ابن حسن کو لا کے لباس حسن پہناؤ، قاسم کی ماں کو مادر کبریٰ کو جلد لاؤ، وہ بولی جان بوجھ کے بھیا نہ یہ سناؤ، اس کام کے لیے تو کسی اور کو، اس کام کے لیے تو کسی اور کو بلا، ماتم کے گھر سے کوئی بھی جاتا ہے بیاہ میں، بیٹوں موئی کو کوئی بلاتا ہے بیاہ، بیٹوں موئی کو کوئی بلاتا ہے بیاہ میں، یادش بخیر فاطمہ صغرا نہیں یہاں، رخصت کے وقت کہتی تھی مجھ سے وہ ناتواں، قاسم کا بیاہ ہوئے سفر میں جو ناگہاں، تم مجھ کو یاد کر کے بلا لیجیو، تم مجھ کو یاد کر کے بلا لیجیو، افسوس کی جگہ ہے کوئی نہ مابر نہیں، قاسم کا بیاہ ہوتا ہے اس کو خبر، قاسم کا بیاہ ہوتا ہے اس کو خبر نہیں۔
صلوات۔ Assalamu alaikum. First I ask everyone please move forward with the salawat. I would like to invite Brother Jafar Lakhani to speak on behalf of Baqi organization and their purpose. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Maulana Ijazat. Most of you already know Al-Baqi organization, and I just wanted to give a brief 5-minute update, and I'll promise I'll try to stay within 5 or 7 minutes. As you know, Al-Baqi organization is a 501c3 founded here in Chicago, a grassroots organization dedicated to the rebuilding of Jannat al-Baqi. We have a 3-pronged approach: awareness, advocacy, and preservation and restoration. You guys have all been involved in our projects, but I just wanted to provide a brief update on some of the most recent news about our organization and worldwide. First and foremost, a big milestone for our organization was that we just submitted in July this past month our 4th cycle submission for the UN Universal Periodic Review for Saudi Arabia. I'll ask you to read aloud salawat and then I'll explain to you what that is. So every year, or every 5 years, members of the United Nations go through what's called a Universal Periodic Review on Human Rights. And they are essentially evaluated and graded on their human rights violations by the United Nations. Alhamdulillah, Al-Baqi organization, through its tireless work over the last 17 years, has been able to gain a consultative status as an NGO at the United Nations. In 2018, we submitted our very first submission to the UN for Saudi Arabia, and we pointed out various deficiencies in their human rights record. For example, the ability for women not to go inside Jannat Al-Baqi, the violations of freedom of religion, and the desecration of burial sites, namely Jannat Al-Baqi, but also various burial sites throughout Mecca, Medina, and Saudi Arabia. So we have now submitted our next, in their fourth cycle, which was 5 years later, we just submitted our most recent submission, and which was a great milestone, and we pointed out the fact that their human rights record has not been lived up to, because in 2018, they promised to enact they acknowledged and promised to try to reform their human rights violations, which they have not done, and we are now pointing that out to the United Nations. In addition, our advocacy work remains strong with organizations and alliances throughout the United Nations. We just had a meeting on July 19th, which was the first of Muharram, with the International Religious Freedom or Belief Alliance. Now, that name seems very long and kind of made up, I understand, but it's actually a United Nations alliance made up of 35 countries, including the United Kingdom, Austria, Australia, Czech Republic, and a whole host of others. Our organization, our board, presented to them on the violations of Saudi Arabia with regards to Jannat Al-Baqi. The surprising thing to note is, as you guys all know, this is very, very common knowledge for Shias and potentially even for Muslims. But the world over does not know this. When we talked about what Jannat Al-Baqi looked like in 1925 and what Jannat Al-Mu'alla looked like in Mecca in 1925 and how they were destroyed, their eyes widened completely. Even the systematic desecration of sites, meaning Bibi Khadija's house in Mecca, a whole host of other things, other sites, religious heritage sites that have been made, that have been razed to the ground in the name of expansion, they didn't know anything about that. And it's been systemic, and we showed them that. And so hopefully, inshallah, with your du'as and your support, action will be taken on the next level, and we continue to do this kind of advocacy work throughout the world with our consultative status, as well as all the actions that we've taken in the United States. Can you please recite aloud salawat? So, and just so you guys know, there's been a lot of recent news the world over, namely the new ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia. A lot of people have been coming up to us and others saying, well, it's going to get fixed now. What are you guys worried about? That may be true, but I urge you to question everything. Question that, question even us. Because what we have seen, once those ties were announced, they had a memorandum of understanding between Iran and Saudi Arabia. But that has already been kind of violated. Well, it hasn't been violated, but the ties and the human rights violations have not stopped. I can give you two very recent examples. As many of you know, 3 of our Chicago community members went over there on 8th Shawwal just wearing Baqi t-shirts like I have here. They did not say anything, they did not do anything. They only visited Jannat Al-Baqi, they took a few pictures, and that was it. That was on the morning of 8th Shawwal. By Isha time, they were detained by Saudi police, and they were held without question, without charge, for 12 days. Now, even if you tell me, okay, you guys had that coming, all right. Well, there's another atrocity that happened. During Hajj, when Saudi Arabia announced that they would ease restrictions on the visitation of Jannat Al-Baqi, and they would ease restrictions on du'as and gatherings of Shias. In that time, during Hajj, when millions of people are in Mecca, there was a Bahraini leader, a Bahraini Hajj group leader, that was reciting Du'a Faraj with his group. I'm sure you guys have seen that video, and everybody was lauding at the time that this is great, look at how easy it's become for all of us, and now we're going to recite Du'a Faraj in Mecca. A few days later, he was detained without question, without charge, and he has been held for a number of days. Alhamdulillah, he's been released, but again, just being detained is not good enough. We shouldn't have to live in the fear of practicing our own religion, especially when you're talking about an alliance of the United States and Saudi Arabia, which Saudi Arabia holds itself so high in becoming a UN rights member, and security rights member, and all of that. We have the religious freedom of religion, and so they should uphold that as well. Can you recite one more loud salawat? All right, I'm up towards my time. So with all of this said, how can you help? Well, there's a number of initiatives that we are taking. In addition to our advocacy efforts, during Arba'in, we have 2 polls during Arba'in, poll 212 and poll 400, and then we also have Sabil in Karbala that you can help support. This raises awareness for our cause, not only for all the Zawar, but also in Iraq, and we have an NGO in Iraq, so you can help support that. The easiest way you can support, of course, is donating. If you have Zelle or Venmo, it's finance@baqi.org, BAQEE.org. But I encourage you, in addition to that, think about volunteering. This is a true 501c3 organization. There are plenty of chances to help. We need writers, content creators. We need people who can post things, who can stand up and speak like I'm doing here. There's many, many opportunities. And for you younger people out there who are in college and high school, having that on your resume, working for an international 501c3 doesn't look that bad when you're applying to other jobs or applying to colleges. In addition, now you have your phone with you, right? We need help in terms of social media. Everybody has a voice here. We talk about Imam Hussein and his struggle in these days. Our jihad might not be a war, our jihad might not be a battle, but our jihad is standing up and speaking against atrocities that are happening against Islam and against our Ahlul Bayt. This Jannat al-Baqi, the desecrated graves, think about all of the people, the millions of people that are in Karbala right now. Imam Hussein's brother, Imam Hussein's son, lay in Medina without graves, with no one to visit them, and restrictions on how you can visit them. Please, please consider raising your voice. We have Twitter, Facebook, social media. Please follow us. Please subscribe. Please try to retweet and repost. Your voice, if we collectively raise it, we can do a lot of good. If nothing else, please, please do dua for this cause, and please, please support us. But if nothing else, please do dua so that we can see Jannat al-Baqi one day rebuilt. And inshallah, during these days, inshallah, one day we will be able to go and visit Jannat al-Baqi and give pursa to Imam Zain al-Abidin, Imam Hassan, and all of the other Imams and Bibi Fatima that lay there. Please recite a loud salawat.
Jazakallah, Jafar Bhai. More information can be found on baqi.org. I would now like to share a short Urdu poem. Gore se gir gaya tha jab farwa ka laadla, shabbir chale khayme se imdad ko wahan, देखा जो रन में टुकड़ों को मौला ने ये कहा, गाजी मदद को आओ कि क़ासिम नहीं मिला. क़ासिम जवाब दो तुम्हें मौला बुलाते हैं, टुकड़ों से सदा आई कि क़ासिम सिमटते हैं. Please don't forget about the blood drive on August 12th and the youth database form. More information will be on the back by the table. The IEC fundraiser is tomorrow, so please don't forget your checkbooks. And lastly, Ziyarat al-Tabut of Hazrat Qasim will be at the end. Tonight, Sheikh will talk about internal conflict and is it to blame for my lack of progress. Now please welcome Shaykh Dr. Mehdi Hazari with the loud salawat.
We request everyone to move as close as possible to the stage. you are welcome to sit on the stage as well. Anyone who does sit on the stage, please stay on the stage, no going up and down. There were a lot of disturbances. Even people downstairs saw you guys going up and down, so please, if you are sitting on the stage, please stay still. Inshallah, we'll have a lot of mu'mineen tonight, so if everyone can come as close as possible to the stage. Salawat par Muhammad.
على حب فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. لتعجيل فرج الإمام صاحب العصر والزمان صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله وعلى أهل بيتك المعصومين الأبرار الميامين المظلومين المضطهدين. السلام عليك وعلى ولدك المظلوم أبي عبد الله الحسين. يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة يا غريب يا مظلوم يا عطشان كربلاء ما خاب والله من تمسك بكم أمن من لجأ والتجأ إليكم. يا ليتنا فيا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن المنافقين في الدرك الأسفل من النار ولن تجد لهم نصيرا إلا الذين تابوا وأصلحوا واعتصموا بالله وأخلصوا دينهم لله فأولئك مع المؤمنين وسوف يؤتي الله المؤمنين أجرا عظيما. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. My dear brothers and sisters, I'm going to begin tonight, and inshallah, as yesterday, I will try to keep it a little simple tonight because tomorrow and the day after the topic is a little heavier. At least in my mind it is. So I will begin tonight with a real life story, inshallah. It's described, I read this story some time ago, where there was a young woman in her 20s, middle 20s, who, obviously not a Muslim, would recreationally drink. And although the drinking initially began as something she did in social gatherings, it quickly got out of hand to the point where she became an alcoholic. And so she describes in her story that she goes to Alcoholics Anonymous, eventually realizing that she has a problem. And she describes that she comes in and she says, by nature I was quite awkward. I didn't, easily connect to people. I had some trouble with that. But I got into Alcoholics Anonymous, and the first person who came up to me was another young woman who was about my age, who was really the opposite of me as she perceived it. She was very attractive and very clear, outspoken and very articulate, and someone who clearly was very put together, but had this problem with alcoholism. And she says, when I joined AA, her and I became friends very quickly, and I needed a sponsor, a support. She became my sponsor, and she started supporting me. During this period of therapy, this recovery, rehabilitation, we grew tighter and closer together until finally I came out of Alcoholics Anonymous, but by then I didn't have a place to stay. I had basically ruined everything. My job was gone, everything was destroyed in my life. And so this friend of mine, this new friend of mine, she offered a place in her apartment. She had an extra room. She said, why don't you come and live with me? So she says, I went and I lived with her. And although we stayed together and we were good friends, we became even closer friends, I felt, what is it that I did to deserve someone like this? This person who, a stranger, came and took care of me when I needed it, supported me, helped me in my moments of weakness, and really stood by me, and I could feel the goodness in her. She says this, she says, I could feel the goodness in her. And as the time went on, I got a job, I was able to earn, and I then at that point felt, okay, well, I need my own place. I can't be living with a roommate. So she said, I moved back out, I got my own apartment, and I stayed in my own apartment. I got a job, I started earning some money. I was doing quite well, saved up quite a bit of money, but unfortunately, I relapsed back into alcoholism. I started drinking again. And the minute that happened, I got worried, and the alcoholism started returning with a vengeance, meaning I started drinking more and more, that I had to go back into rehabilitation. Now, I went back into rehabilitation, but now I have this empty apartment that requires bills to be paid, that has a rent, electricity, water, utilities. I had a car, etc. All these things, they had to be covered, but once you go into rehab, you don't have access to that. So she said, I relied on my friend, and I said to her, please, can you help me? And my friend was very willing. She went out of her way to help me. She took my car for servicing. She drove to the insurance office to make sure everything's paid. She's like, this person was an angel. She took care of everything for me. And so to be able to do that, because I had no access, I gave her bank account information, I gave her my cards, etc., and she paid everything on time. And I would check in with her from time to time and ensure that everything is okay. And while I was in rehabilitation, I felt at least some peace that I have this friend, this good-hearted friend who's taking care of me. She says, after some months went out, I finished my rehab, I came out of rehabilitation. I went to take care of my affairs, to get back to my apartment and hopefully back to some semblance of normalcy. So after taking care of some basic needs, I saw all my bills had been paid, everything was good. She's like, I went to the bank just to check, and I wanted to withdraw some money to have some extra cash because I had some outstanding bills that were remained. She said, I gave the lady the withdrawal slip and requested a few $1,000s. And as I gave it to the teller looked up the bank account number, and she said, there's no money in your account. There's not enough to pull out what you're asking for. She said, suddenly my heart dropped. And she thought, That can't be a mistake. That can't be right. It's got to be a mistake. She told the teller, she said, check again. Check again. Teller checked again. She says, no, your balance is like $200. There's nothing in your account. At first she said, that's not possible. I had saved several thousand, $20,000, $30,000 prior to going back into rehabilitation. There's no way that it's down to 200. So now she goes back and she says, I need to talk to a manager because this is not possible. Someone's stolen my money. And clearly she thought that the bank had done something wrong, misappropriated, shuffled the funds around. She went and sat with the manager sat and they said, no, we track the accounts properly and legitimately the accounts have paid off your bills and withdrawals have been made. She said, withdrawals by who? She says, oh, by this person. And when she went and looked at the statement, it's her friend's name. Her friend, along with paying her bills, along with taking care of her needs, pulled out money from her account and used it for herself. And not small amounts of money, big amounts of money, lots and lots of it. And she says, when I went and I confronted her, that I gave you my bank account information, she at first denied it. She said, that's not possible. So she said, I returned with the statement and I showed it that you are the one who pulled it out. She said, then she admitted. And she says, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to do it. But there's nothing you can do about it now. So this young woman, long story short, she takes her to court. There's enough proof that this friend of hers, while she was in rehabilitation, stole her money, basically took the money, lots and lots of it, and ended up in prison. Now, let me finish with this. The girl who goes to rehabilitation, whose money is taken by her friend who she trusted, she says this at the end of it. She says, there's no doubt in my mind that this friend of mine is a good person. I know for sure she's a good person. She took care of me when I needed, and she had no reason that she could think in her mind that later on I'm going to scam her. There was no plan in her mind to scam. She wasn't a scam artist. She said she was a good person when she first met me in Alcoholics Anonymous. She took care of me. There's no way she had conceived of this at that point. But at that moment, when suddenly the money became available to her, what happened to her? That good person that was in there, what caused the conflict inside that smashed against it and destroyed it? And the question she asks is, the fact that she was good and did all these good things, are they absolutely eradicated by her dishonesty and her thievery that came afterwards? Is the good person who existed in there just a figment of my imagination, or is she in fact actually good and just mired by the fact that there is also evil in there, or sin in there? I start with this because this is insan, and I mentioned this a few nights ago, that you want to see good and evil, it's easy on the extremes of the spectrum. But to see good and evil when it's next to each other, intersecting off of each other, is very hard. Because both are pulling you. And with one step, you're either in the good side, or with one step, you slip. Very easily. It's on those boundaries that we struggle. And insan's mind is full of conflict. Full of conflict. And hopefully I'm going to share some of what that means tonight, insha'Allah. And this is important. Why? We just heard about the Baqi. My dear brothers and sisters, what we see today in the world, between those who stand for justice, truth, preservation of what is sacred, live by what the Holy Quran says, ذَلِكَ وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. Those who preserve and exalt the sacred signs of God, it is a sign of pious heart. There are those who stand on that side, and then there are those who are hell-bent on destroying that, eradicating that. This struggle is a struggle of ideology. And if we don't know where we stand on the struggle of this ideology, then it will be very difficult. It will be very, very challenging. And we need to be able to be clear in our minds with no conflict where we stand. And yet sometimes that conflict is always there. Why? Because one thing has not deeply rooted itself inside of us. They say when the Arabs came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. They said, "O Rasulullah, we believe in you. We believe in Allah, we believe in Rasul, we believe in your religion." The ayah came down. What does it say? It says, قَالَتِ الْأَعْرَابُ آمَنَّا قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا. The ayah comes down, the Arabs of the desert, they came to Rasulullah, they said, "O Rasulullah, O Muhammad, we believe. Amanna." The ayah immediately it says, قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا. Don't say you believe. وَلَكِنْ قُولُوا أَسْلَمْنَا. Say no, you've become Muslim. وَلَمَّا يَدْخُلُ الْإِيمَانِ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. Say that you have taken the first step, and that is attesting to the fact that you are a Muslim by name. That's it. Don't say you have believed. It's a very strong statement. Because there are many people who step forward and they say, "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah," and they say, "I'm a believer." Indeed, may Allah make you on the path of belief, but that is one step in a very long and endless journey that never stops. You will never reach the end of that road. You will never hit the target of that. You will die before you hit that target. And that's why the ayah, it says, don't say you believe. Say you have become a Muslim until that iman goes into your heart. Why? Because the Ma'soom alayhi salam, what does he say? He says inside the heart of a believer, there's a battle going on. Between good and evil. Between the malaika who are whispering in the ears of the heart and the shayateen that are whispering in the ears of the heart. Constantly whispering. And that's why there's even a riwayah that describes that when insan was developed and formed and Allah says, "I am giving knowledge for your guidance," and you have this path in front of you, shaitan, it's reported in the hadith, he calls his jinn. And he says to them, "Which one of you is going to go and destroy this enemy?" So one of them, one Ifrit, he comes forward, he says, "I will do it by doing this and this." Another one comes forward, he says, shaitan dismisses him. Another one comes, he says, "I will try this approach." He dismisses him. Another one comes from somewhere else, he says, "I will use this approach." Shaitan dismisses him. Until finally one comes and he says, "I will whisper in his heart. And if he doesn't listen to me, I will come back a few minutes later and I will whisper in his heart again. And then even if he doesn't listen to me, I will wait 1 hour and I will come back and whisper again in his heart. And even if he doesn't listen to me, I will come back another day and I will whisper in his heart." Shaitan says, "Go, you have the task of misleading these people. Go." This is the battle inside the heart of an insan. This is what constantly is crushing us. And the battle of Imam Hussein is this. It is the recognition of this. Believe me, my dears, it begins with this recognition. So I ask you, if the Quran it says that don't say that you are mu'min, say you are Muslim until iman enters into your heart, then what determines belief? What causes you to believe? Is it, I mentioned to you, sewn into your DNA? Now the beauty of this system of God, I don't know how many basic scientists there are out here, but DNA, which is the genetic code that essentially gives life to everybody, is the patterning for every creature that God has created, is made up of 4 base pairs, 4 nucleotides, 4 possible nucleotides. That's it. And with the random shuffling of these, I say random, but it's obviously not random. With the random shuffling of this, you can create a human and you can create a parasite. You can create a lion and you can create COVID-19. Huh? Think. So is this the start of faith? Maybe it is. But it's a strange thing because every other creature that's made from that DNA, they believe in God, they submit to God, except for us, strangely enough. So maybe that DNA is the source of belief, that it is the cause of belief, yet there is something from us that overrides it. Or is it the fact that you believe because you have something inside of you that Allah has put in, the fitrah, and then your environment sort of changes you to believe? So tell me how this sounds. You are born into a pious family who teaches you the love of Allah, teaches you to pray, teaches you to fast, teaches you to read Quran, teaches you to feed the poor, to have high akhlaq, to respect the elders, be good to your parents, all of those things. Is that what generates iman? Is that what creates faith inside of a person? If that's the case, then it's almost a guarantee, yes? That as long as you are born with the fitrah, that you will have faith, no? Will you? I say no. No guarantee. Who disagrees with me? No hands? Come on, you guys can be bold and disagree with me a little, no? It creates discourse. Not during the majlis, but later maybe. I'll give you an example. The nephew of Imam Al-Qasim alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. You know this story, no? He was bribed by the Abbasi Khalif. Come up to me, I will pay your bills, I will give you money, come and give me the information about your uncle. And he is leaving Medina. And Imam Qasim, he stops him, he says, where are you going? He says, uncle, I'm going because I have to take care of some financial needs. I have things that I need to take care of. Imam, he says to him, don't go, I will take care of your needs. Ya Allah, Imam is telling him that. Not his Imam, his uncle is telling him. This is the household of Nubuwah, Rasulullah's household, no? He says, I will take care of your needs, don't go, don't go. He says, no, I must go, I must go. So Imam, he says to him, okay, you must go. Take this advice from me before you go. Don't do anything that will bring harm to the house of Rasulullah. He went to the Abbasi Khalif. He didn't stay long. He got sick and he died. He got sick and he died. Now, if this is the case of somebody who is in the house of Rasulullah, Ja'far al-Kadhab, no, the name Ja'far al-Kadhab should have meaning to all of you. The uncle who stood up to do the janazah of Al-Imam al-Askari alayhi salam until Al-Imam al-Mahdi comes and he says, no uncle, it's not your place. Don't take a place that does not belong to you. He didn't grow up in the house of Imamat. So what's to say that you are born with that fitrah, you have a household of iman, you have a household with good parents, and please don't take me wrong. There is nothing greater blessing than parents who are believers who instill that in you. But what I'm trying to say to you is it's not a guarantee. There's no guarantee. The responsibility is on your shoulder, is on our shoulder. And to say we will not take for granted that God put us in a believing family, so automatically we will believe. There's no automatic belief. It is struggle after struggle after struggle after struggle until finally Allah relieves you from the life of this world. Takes you away from this prison. And relieves you of that waswas al-khannas that is constantly in your heart, constantly pecking away at you. And you see, insan is this way. Insan struggles with this very thing. You know this. And again, I keep coming to these studies. I am not a psychologist by any means. I'm not a behavioral scientist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't study the mind per se. I just find it interesting. I'm a basic scientist. I'm a neurophysiologist. But these things, these studies that describe human nature are very interesting. Why? Because they can tell us the journey of a mu'min, the struggle of a mu'min, what it should be like, how difficult it should be. So they did a study. They looked at perceptions pre and post COVID and what it's like. And not only the perceptions of pre and post COVID, but how people's fears and predilections changed. They described that there are some people who believe the world is a dangerous place. Maybe some of us are that way. We think that the world is inherently dangerous, whether it is here, whether it is in Iraq, whether it is in Lebanon, or in Afghanistan, or Pakistan, or Russia, or Europe, or anywhere, is inherently dangerous. There are other people who inherently believe that the world is a safe, blessed, good place where people are good. Aren't there people like this? There are some people who will trust everybody. And then there are other people, you can be the nicest person to them, they still won't trust you. They're inherently distrustful. So they did a study, and they thought, their hypothesis was that after COVID-19, there will be a greater number of people who think that the world is a dangerous place. No? Makes sense. COVID changed a lot. COVID messed everything up for people. The results shows that nothing changes. Nothing. Those who believe that the world is a dangerous place before COVID still believed it was dangerous after COVID. Those who believed that the world was a safe and good place before COVID stayed on that belief. COVID was just a little blip like this. They went back to their belief. And after doing meta-analysis and meta-analysis and meta-analysis of the data, looking at all these different data points and everything, they came to the conclusion, now this is interesting, they came to the conclusion that belief lies upstream of your experiences. Let me explain that. If I were to look at you, one of you comes to me and you say that I experienced this, I experienced that in my life, pain, sorrow, war, hunger, happiness, sadness, I traveled, I saw this world, all these different experiences, and then you come and explain your beliefs to me. If I try to interpret the reason of your belief being your experience, it's flawed. That's what the data shows. Your beliefs are not generated by your experiences. That's what the science is showing. Your beliefs are upstream of that. They come before your experience. How many of you thought of that? We think that our belief comes from experience, no? From living with our parents, living with our relatives, 20 years of reading the Quran, etc. And indeed, spirituality, reflection, worshipfulness will increase belief, strengthen belief. But the point is clear, that belief lies deep in you from the beginning. And you know what the investigators, the researchers said? They said, if you want to believe the world is a good place, a blessed place, start now. Don't wait for your experiences to change. Believe it now. Is Allah not telling us that? Allah is not saying that believe in the goodness that I have placed in front of you? Why are you waiting for everything around you to change? So you can imagine the sort of trauma that occurs inside of a human's mind when you struggle with this. When you see the world as being ugly and inside your belief is saying, where is my Allah who is Adil, who is just, who protects the weak and the orphans and the widows and those who have no one to support them? And your mind begins to question everything that is in front of you. Well, your belief is not based on that experience. Your belief is based on the experience that God is just because His system is just. It is humanity that have sullied and destroyed what is in front of them. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes our nature to us. He says in the Holy Quran, وَلَكِنْ حَبَّبَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكُمْ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمْ الْإِيمَانِ وَزَيَّنَهُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ وَكَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمْ الْكُفْرَ وَالْفُسُوقَ وَالْعِصْيَانَ. Allah, He has made Iman, faith, endeared to your heart. It is something you love in your heart. It's natural. And He has ornamented it. He has made it a zina. When you say zina, it means it's like a decoration in your heart. Iman. Iman is a decoration. And on the opposite end of it, juxtaposed to it, كَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمْ الْكُفْرَ وَالْفُسُوقَ وَالْعِصْيَانَ. He has made absolutely abhorred, on the opposite of that, three things. Iman on one end, beautiful, beloved in your heart, decorated in your heart. On the other end, three things. Kufr, denial. Now I think I already explained to you that kufr is not just denial of God, it's denial of blessings. Taking part of the Quran, not taking part of the Quran. Accepting 50% of what Allah says, not the other 50%. Kufr. Fusuq. Fusuq, what does it mean? Fusuq you can translate in many different ways. It means to transgress. It means to be inequitable, go against justice, etc. Not follow the rules properly. Asyan, finally, the third thing, rebelliousness. You rebel against anything that is good. So now you can see in your mind the conflict that's occurring. Iman on one side, lack of gratitude on the other. Iman on one side, deviation and moving away on the other side. Iman on one side, rebelliousness on the other. Ask yourself how many times this happens. Why do I have to pay khums right now when I need to save the money to put a down payment on my house? My khums date is May 31st. I am closing on my house. The time on which I have to put a down payment is June 15th. No, let's be even more extreme. June 1st. Wait, there are 31 days in May, right? I forgot already. Khums date is May 31st. Down payment due June 1st. What do? You rebel. You rebel and you say, no, Allah doesn't want this. Khalas, I will wait one extra day. It doesn't matter. No, it does matter. You see how that little bit of conflict? You're a good person. You want to pay your khums. You're trying to do what Allah is telling you. But what are you doing? You're slightly deviating off the path. Very slightly shifting off of that path. And that's why Al-Imam Ali Zain al-Abidin alayhi salatu was-salam, he describes, he says, if a mu'min has three qualities, that Allah will support him inevitably. Allah will support this person inevitably and keep him or her in the shade of his care. Imam Zain al-Abidin, he explains the first is that he ensures, or she ensures, this person ensures that they preserve the rights of somebody else just like they want their own rights to be preserved. Now I ask you, what causes conflict in life? I give you an example, I come home from my 9-hour day of work. I worked hard. How many of you believe that? Probably not, right? I have a nice desk job. I sit, it's AC. I drink my coffee in the morning. It's pretty easy. Alhamdulillah. I still come home, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. I go sit on the couch. I kick my leg up. The replay of the Premiership game is on, or somewhere in the afternoon, so I make it home for the live game. I'm drinking my chai. Tell me, is there anything better than that chai at 3 or 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the evening? Anything better than that? Man, that's the best feeling, no? So good, you're sitting there, and then suddenly a voice comes. Can you come help me with the dishes? Ya Allah. No? But it's my right to sit on the couch. Is my right, isn't it? I worked. Is my right to sit? Is my right to rest? Allah has given me that right, I worked. But have I considered the right of somebody else at that moment? It's in that most difficult moment that you have to think about the right of the other person. If I've slept 9-10 hours on Saturday morning, I've eaten my breakfast, and then that call comes that come help me with the dishes, easy. Because I've slept, I'm rested, I ate, I have everything. No? It's in that difficult moment that the conflict is happening in your brain. Imam Zain al-Abidin, he says, they want to protect the rights of others just like they want their own rights to be protected. One. Number two, they don't step forward with their leg, they don't extend their hand forward except in the obedience of Allah. Once they have guaranteed that what they are doing is the obedience of God. How many times do we step forward and we've not even realized whether this is obedience or not obedience? Ta'a or ma'siyah? How do we know? Because of blindness. Or we get to the point where there is that choice, like the khums issue. Obey or just deviate slightly, no? It's difficult, it's not easy. The third thing, Al-Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salatu was-salam is reported to have said that will keep the believer under the support of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that this person will not find a fault in somebody else unless they fix that same fault in themselves first. Now let me stop here. Our eyes are always looking where? You can't actually look inside physically, so where are your eyes inevitably going to look? At the actions of everybody else, no? And when you look at the actions of everyone else, who do you see? You see the good actions, which are laudable, but you also see those ugly actions that some people are doing. The ones that immediately pop out. And not only do they pop out, but you recognize them and you say, look at that, what he just did. It's horrible. How can he do that? He should be ashamed of himself. Yet, what is reported to us? That the only reason I recognized it in somebody else is because I have it inside me myself. If I didn't have it inside myself, I wouldn't recognize it. Huh? Look at this. And that's why, again, the conflict that exists. Should I look in or should I look out? How much should I look out? How much should I actually look in? And believe me, the answer is not easy, my dear brothers and sisters. Because when you are searching for an answer in your mind, you're trying to discern, you're trying to come to an answer to go this way or that way, good or bad, right or wrong, halal, haram, etc. All of those things, your mind is not working in a vacuum. Meaning, if I am in the circumstance where I'm talking to a friend of mine, and he's telling me his problems, and I'm trying to counsel him, you would think that my conversation with him would be solely based on what he's telling me, the facts he's giving me, my possible relationship with him, and essentially what I think is the solution to his problem, right? It's only that. It's in a vacuum, right there. No, it's not. It's not happening in a vacuum. So let me give you an example of this, all right? They did a study. I'll tell you 2 more studies, okay? Tonight it was 3 studies that I've given you. I hope all of you become curious to learn about human nature, because it's worrying and it's both encouraging at the same time, because it teaches you how to navigate life. They bring these groups of people in. It was in a college, actually. It was actually at MIT that they did this, so these people are smart, obviously. They brought these people in, these students, they split them up into 2 groups. Not 2 groups, they kept them as 1 group, I'm sorry. And they gave them a piece of paper, and they told them, look, on one side of the piece of paper, write down the last 4 digits of your social security number, just the last 4 digits. Please don't ever write your full social security number on a piece of paper unless you're at a government office, okay? Very dangerous to do that. Last 4 digits of your social security number, write them down. And on the other side of the paper, they put in front of them a keyboard, like a mouse or something, and a few other like electronics, and they said to them, look, tell us, what do you think the cost of this keyboard is? On one side of the paper, write down the last 4 digits of your social security number, flip it over. On the other side, write down what you think that this keyboard costed. They collect all of these from several hundred students. They analyzed it. They found that the people whose social security numbers were between 00, the last 2 numbers, and 19, okay, so the last 2 numbers of the social security number was 00 up to 19, between this range, they wrote down $8.62. Those people whose social security numbers went from 20 to approximately 39, they wrote down $8.95. Those people whose social security numbers went from 40 to, let's say, 69, they wrote down $10.50. Those people you're getting the pattern, no? Those people whose social security numbers went from 70 at the end to approximately 89, they wrote down how much? $12.31. And then those people whose social security numbers went from 89 or 99 or 90 up to 99, all the way up to the highest number, they wrote the highest amount that they thought that this keyboard is going to cost, $15 something, blah, blah. Now why? What does social security number have to do with keyboard cost and what you estimate to be the cost of this keyboard? Nothing, is it? Has nothing to do with it. Absolutely nothing. So how is it that those who have the smaller number on the social security number are estimating a lower cost than those who have a larger number on the social security number? Something you didn't even determine yourself. Let me give you another example. They took 2 groups of people. They created a jury, okay? And in the jury, They said, we want to tell you a scenario and we want you to give your judgment on this. The judgment is based on this, that a man, he was driving in his car after leaving a party. He ran a stop sign, and by running the stop sign, he ran into a truck and caused damage to the truck and maybe some injury. And there is an indication that he was drunk. He had drank a little too much, okay? So now, they presented in two different ways. To one jury, one set of participants, they describe that let's give you a little history on this poor guy who ran the stop sign, hit the truck, caused some problems. When he was leaving the party, there are eyewitnesses who said he stumbled a little because he was tipsy. He hit a table and then some things dropped and he walked out. That's it. With the other set of participants, the other jury, they said the eyewitnesses state that he was leaving the party, he stumbled because he was tipsy, there was a table there with some guacamole on it. The study says guacamole, I'm not making it up. There was some guacamole on it, he stumbled, the guacamole fell onto the carpet was white, and the carpet got stained by the guacamole. And then he proceeded out. Guess who thought more likely than not that he was guilty? The jury that heard that he hit the guacamole fell on that white carpet causing a stain, more of them thought he was guilty than the ones who just heard the other story. It's data, it's human response. Just because of this little change, what does guacamole and white carpet have to do with the fact that this guy hit a truck? Nothing. Nothing at all. Just like the social security number has nothing to do with valuation of a keyboard. Yet look at the struggle inside the mind of insan. Now if that's happening for something small like this, you don't think it's happening when you think about obeying God, following the path of Allah, being devoted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And you see that in the religious history, in our religion's history, there is a point to this internal conflict. It's occurring, and it's being dealt with in a way that Allah is teaching us. And what we have to do is, when we read the history and understand what the Quran is teaching us, is try to discern, how does this apply to me today? And I said to you that Allah, He detests, He says, do not go near kufr, fusuq, and asyan. Denial, inequity, injustice, going the wrong way, and rebelliousness. Stay away from those three things. They are ugly. I deny them for you. And yet you see the Muslim nation, what did it do? They say Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. One day he says to Salima, it's reported that, O Salima, Ali minni bimanzilati Haruna min Musa illa innahu la nabiyya ba'di. Ali is to me as Harun was to Musa, except that there is no prophet after me. So everyone should hold on to him, because he is my wasi, he is my wali, he is my brother, he is my khalifa, etc., 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 etc. He goes on. Then he goes on and he says, إِنَّهُ يَقْتُلُ الْقَاسِطُونَ وَالنَّاكِثُونَ وَالْمَارِقُونَ. He is going to kill those people who are unjust, inequitable, meaning against the religion of God, those people who break their oaths, and those people who apostate, who deviate completely. Look, the three. The three. And that's why you know this, that at the time of the end of the life of the third Khalifa, there's a lot to learn in this period. Muslims, if they were to just see these events in these last few weeks, few months, you will look at yourself and you'll say, where am I standing? And you will want to question what is inside yourself. You know that the people at the end of the reign of the third Khalifa were unhappy. Particularly the people in Egypt. Islam had spread to Egypt. So the people of Egypt had gotten tired. And the governor of Egypt, who had been appointed by the third Khalifa, he was a man named Ibn Abi Sarh. He was extremely despotic, extremely unfair, and the Egyptian people were tired of it. So they banded together and they descend down upon Medina. They don't enter Medina, they wait in a valley outside of Medina. Now, hearing this, they say people from Basra also get upset because they've been mistreated. People from Kufa are upset because they've been mistreated. They hear the Egyptians have come, they descend down as well. Now you imagine all these people outside of Medina. They send a messenger to the Khalifa. They said, we want you to solve and fix the problems that have been enacted, that have been created due to your appointments and your policies. We don't need to talk about them. History describes them already. The misappropriation of funds, the nepotism, the appointment of relatives into positions of power, etc., etc., etc. We don't have to talk about all the details. So the people come, they say, we want this fixed. In particular, the people of Egypt want Ibn Abi Sarh removed from this position. Take him out. So they say that the third Khalifa, he goes to the mosque, the Masjid al-Nabawi, gets on the mimbar, and he scolds them. I am the Khalifa of God. I have been appointed over the Muslims. I have the right, etc., etc. All of these things, he says them. They become very angry. They don't like it. They've been mistreated. It's unfair what's happened to them. So he goes home, and now the people have become quite anxious. They become quite angry. So he sends a messenger to the one and only person who can help him. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wa salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He says, oh Abul Hassan, I'm caught in this situation. I cannot even get out of my house now. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, you are the only one to blame for this. For your policies, for what you have done, for how you have treated the people, and for the people you have appointed as leadership, as governors, as supervisors over them. The wrong people have been placed. And we talked about Shuraih yesterday. All of these people have been placed in positions because of their proximity to you, or because of some benefit, unfortunately. So now you have to remove Ibn Abi Sarh. You have to remove him. And you have to promise the people with penitence, repent. You must repent. Imam says to him, you must repent and tell the people that you will correct it. You must. They say he goes and he gives an apology. He asks the Egyptian delegate to come, and he says to him, look, I will remove him. I will remove him, and in his place I will appoint Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. Okay? We know Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr was sent for that purpose. We will appoint him, and the delegation goes out. The Egyptians feel a little happy now that, okay, he's sending Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, who is known, who is well-established, trustworthy, pious, honest, good man. Send him towards Egypt to take care of it. As that delegation leaves, somebody comes into the ear of the third Khalifa. This voice is the same voice that came into the ear of Al-Walid when Al-Husayn came to him. Marwan ibn al-Hakam. Marwan ibn al-Hakam, he comes in and he says, look, what you have done has weakened your position. You are the Khalifa of God here. What are you talking about? Why are you capitulating to them? He says, now that they have gone, when people come and ask you what happened due to this whole ordeal and this chaos, tell them that they were in misunderstanding. They didn't understand what was happening, that you set them straight with the truth. Look at the deception. That you set them straight. So now when he gets up and he makes these types of statements, do you think the people are going to like it? They're not going to like it. They get extremely, extremely angry by these sorts of things. Moreover, there is a report that states that when the delegation comes towards Egypt, okay, now this is the delegation that has Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, good people with the Egyptians coming back to their country to establish a just rule, to remove Ibn Abi Sarh out of the place and install a new just governor there. When they come, the report says the Egyptians meet them, they stop them right there. Who are you? They say, who are you? They say, we are coming from Medina, and we have come on some official business. They don't trust, the people of Egypt don't trust what's coming out of Medina now. So they say, what is in your possession? They check, it's reported there's a slave, he's got a sack with some water in it, a water skin. They say, we want to see in that. They say, what's in it's a water skin, it's got some water in it. There's nothing else in it that you can see, that you can hide in a water skin. They said, no, we want to see it. The Egyptians don't trust. Finally, by force, they take it. When they open it, there is a metal pipe inside of it with a piece of paper inside the water. They take it out, the piece of paper is opened up, and the paper says it has instructions on it to be given to the current governor, the people of Ibn Abi Sarh, that this delegation that's coming from Medina, kill them all. So now you can imagine the Egyptians read this and what their state is like. What their state is going to be like. So they return, and now it is very difficult. And now it's a long story, but they come to the door of the third Khalifa, and they say there is one companion, he came to only gently say something. And after the chaos and what has happened, the third Khalifa goes back to Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he says, help me, help me. I'm in such a desperate position, such a desperate position. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, no, you didn't listen to me. Now I have nothing to do with this. Imam was smart. He says, I have nothing to do with this. I am not engaged in any of these activities. Leave me alone. He asks Imam to come. Imam does not answer. He does not go. So now this companion comes to visit the third Khalifa. It's reported that he's trying to tell him, look, stop this. You're creating trouble. Apologize, repent. Try to fix the problems that have occurred under your leadership and under your reign. They say when that's happening, there must be a skirmish. One of the men of the third Khalifa, he takes an arrow, he shoots this guy. He hits him with the arrow, the man dies. Once that happens, the mob doesn't stop now. The mob attacks, and you know the end of it. They assassinate the third Khalifa, and it is over, it is finished. Now why am I telling you all of this story? Because now in the minds of people, what is happening? They are asking the question, where is the truth? Who do we turn to? There are some who blamed Ali ibn Abi Talib and said, no, Ali, you are the one who caused all of this. And in fact, one of the battles was because of it, isn't it? And in fact, Muawiyah la'natullahi alayh is the first person to send a letter to Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib blaming him. So Amir al-Mu'mineen, he writes a letter back to him. And he says to him, you revile me, you make fun of me, that I had been dragged by my neck. You act as if you're humiliating me because I was involved in a way that I was not. In fact, your act of trying to humiliate me has actually become a source of praise because I had nothing to do with any of this. He says, ask yourself, O Muawiyah, who is the culprit here? I was neither on the side of the third Khalifa nor on the side of those people who killed him. I did not support his policies, nor did I stand with them when they came to attack him and kill him. I was in my home quietly sitting. He says, Muawiyah, where were you? Because it was Uthman, the third Khalifa, who when the mob descended on Medina, sent a letter to his cousin saying, send troops and support from Damascus. And Muawiyah said no, because there was no political expediency and support for him in this manner. And one day, if I have the opportunity, I will tell you about his thoughts. He wrote them down, why he didn't think it was appropriate to send the troops to support his cousin. Imagine, these are the same people, Muawiyah la'natullahi alayh, who ride against Amir al-Mu'mineen. And the Quran describes these people, the qasitun. It says, Ya ayyuhar rasul, obviously this is a previous ayah, but has been reflected on these people. يا أيها الرسول لا يحزنك الذين يسارعون في الكفر من الذين قالوا آمنا بأفواههم ولم تؤمن قلوبهم يحرفون الكلمة من بعد مواضعه. It says, O Prophet, O Rasul, don't be saddened by those people who are racing to become kafir, they profess from their mouth that they are mu'min, but their hearts are not. They profess from their mouth that they are mu'min, their mouth is saying what their heart is not. They are taking the word of Allah, they have taken what has been ordained by Allah and twisting it for their purposes. That is Siffin, no? Imam Ali fought, just like Rasulullah said, he will come and he will fight for that. He will fight against that. What happened prior to that? The same argument by people who know. Talha and Zubair knew who they were out. We talked about it yesterday, did we not? They had given oath to Amir al-Mu'mineen. And the ayah describes people like this. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُبَايِعُونَكَ إِنَّمَا يُبَايِعُونَ اللَّهِ يَدُ اللَّهِ فَوْقَ أَيْدِيهِمْ فَمَنْ نَكَثَ فَإِنَّمَا يَنْكُثُ عَلَىٰ نَفْسِهِ. The ayah is very clear that those people who come and give you bay'ah, O Rasulullah, it is as if Allah's hand is on top of theirs. They are giving bay'ah to Allah. So whoever breaks this vow, this oath, they have done so to their own detriment. That is Rasulullah, and this is Nafs al-Rasul. This is the Khalifa of Rasulullah, the Akh of Rasulullah, the Wasi of Rasulullah, the Wali of Rasulullah. And this is by people who are, Mu'min. Who in their mind, they have ridden out to fight the right. And they're standing against the Imam of their time. And then finally, the last one, my dear brothers and sisters, you know, the Battle of Nahrawan. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wassalam, he fought the Qasitin, the Nakithin, and the Mariqin. The Mariqin are the people who have absolutely deviated. And the ayah describes people like this. It says, قُلْ هَلْ نُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِالْأَخْسَرِينَ أَعْمَالًا. Should we tell you, the Quran is saying about those people whose actions are absolutely at loss? الَّذِينَ ضَلَّ سَعْيُهُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَهُمْ يَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ يُحْسِنُونَ صُنْعًا. These are the same people who they think they are doing amazing things in the life of this world and on the right, and their actions are the ones that are the least effective and at greatest loss. Ya Allah. My dear brothers and sisters, conflict in the mind is this. And before I go to the musibah, why I tell you all of this? Because history of Islam is pockmarked with those who claim to be mu'min, but were barely Muslim. Not all of them were evil, but many of them were confused. Many of them saw in the surface what they thought was the truth and allowed it to influence their judgment. That's why clear your mind. And when you decide your belief, decide your action, decide what you do based on the three things that Imam talked about. The rights of somebody else, obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and addressing the faults and the ills that are inside of you before you look at anyone else. If you adhere to these three things, the conflict that exists inside of you will start to dissipate. You will become clear in your mind. That is Karbala. That is why Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam, when he is coming up, it is reported, he stops in Khuzaymiyah. He stops, the Rawi, he says, two men were there. They were coming from Kufa. They didn't want to talk to Imam Hussein. They didn't want to sit with Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein wanted to talk to them. They refused. They kept going further away. They knew what he's calling to. They don't want to hear the truth. Meanwhile, one of their tribe members, it's reported, or another man, spoke to them, and then he came and told Imam Hussein and joined. He told Imam Hussein, Yabna Rasulullah, you are going to Kufa. The people of Kufa, their hearts are with you, but their swords are against you. This statement we repeated a lot, no? How can the heart of someone be with Imam Hussein and his sword is against him? How? That must be a world of conflict inside this person. How do you have love for someone and then lift a sword to kill them? Clearly there is some issue. And that is what is on us to understand, my dear brothers and sisters. And this began in the time of Imamat. That's why أول مظلوم في الإسلام, first who has been مظلوم in Islam, the first oppressed in Islam is Ali ibn Abi Talib. And after him Al-Hasan. The Rawi, he says, one day, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he comes into the room. Imam Hassan is there. This is after the demise of their father. Imam Hassan is the Imam. Imam Hassan, the older brother, he sees Hussein. He begins to cry. Imam Hussein, he says, Ya akhi, ya Hassan, ma hadha al-buka? Why are you crying? He says, the people are going to treat you badly. They have already turned against you, placed hardship upon you and your family. And then the poison is going to be fed to you, by which you will die. Imam Hassan, he says, indeed, my brother, indeed, it is difficult. And indeed, the one will come who will put the poison in my yogurt, and I will drink it, and I will be poisoned by it, and I will die. ولكن لا يوم كيومك يا أبا عبد الله. There is no day like your day, Ya Hussein. These are the words of Al-Hasan. 30,000 soldiers will stand on that battlefield to draw your blood, ready to spill your blood and the blood of your loved ones in a time when none of us will be present. On that day of Ashura, my dear brothers and sisters, in your moments of these nights of Muharram and Safar, when you are sitting quietly in your room in the darkness, say, Aywa Husayna, wa ghariba, wa madluma. The heart of our Imam, how it must have tolerated that pain. They say the companions have been martyred on the battlefield, one by one. The youth of Bani Hashim are going out and fighting the enemy soldiers, until finally one young man, he comes forward, lam yablugh al-hulm. The Rawi, he says he had not even reached the age of bulugh. He was below the age of bulugh, maybe 13, 12, 11, very small, very young. He comes to his uncle Al-Hussein, he says, Ya Amma, Ya Ibn Rasulillah, Ata'adhanu li fil qital. Imam Hussein alayhi salam turns. He looks at Al-Qasim ibn Al-Hasan. He says to him, you are the sign of my brother Al-Hasan. وَإِذَا اشْتَقْنَا إِلَىٰ أَخُونَا الْحَسَنِ نَظَرْنَا إِلَيْكَ. If we ever longed and missed our brother Al-Hasan, we looked at your face, O Qasim. No, go back, I will not give you permission. Al-Imam Al-Hussein sends Qasim back. فَرَجَعَ الْغُلَامِ بَاكِيًا مَنْدُوبًا. He went back crying and lamenting, until finally he remembered. The Rawi, he describes that he had given him a awda. Al-Imam Al-Hasan in his life had given him a awda, a letter, a message, that take this message when you are in pain, when you are suffering. Qasim, he remembers, in this moment, there is no pain greater on me right now than when my uncle, he said no to me for fighting. He takes the awda, he takes the letter, opens the letter. It is a letter from his father Al-Hasan, who says to him, Ya bunay, if your uncle Al-Hussein is surrounded by the enemies, go and take permission from him. And if he says no to you, go and keep asking him. Don't stop until he gives you permission. Finally, he goes back. Imam Hussein, he sees the letter. They say he still does not want to give permission to Qasim. فيقول الراوي أن الغلام لا زال يقبل يداه. The young boy, he kept kissing the hands of Imam Hussein, begging him, my uncle, please let me go. Until finally Imam Hussein, he says, Bunayya Qasim, kayfa tara al-maut? How do you see death, O Qasim? Qasim, he says, إِنَّهُ أَحْلَى مِنَ الْعَسَلِ. It is sweeter than honey. They say Imam Hussein, some of the Rawis, they describe that he takes Qasim back to the tent. Farwan, Zainab al-Kubra are there. Imam Hussein, he says, oh Zainab, is there any clothes, new clothes to put on Qasim ibn al-Hasan? They said there are no clothes, no new clothes. Imam Hussein finds something to cover him. He takes the amama of his brother Al-Hasan. وَلَفَّهُ عَلَى رَأْسِ الْغُلَامِ. He covered the head of Qasim. He took Qasim ibn al-Hasan out from the tent and raised him onto the horse, going out to the battle. One by one fighting the enemy, calling out in kuntum tunkiruni fa ana najlul Hasan. If you deny who I am the son of Al-Hasan. One by one they are fighting against him. The Rawi, he says, at one point on the battlefield, Imam Hussein loses sight of Qasim. He cannot see Qasim anywhere. Qasim's sandal is torn due to the strike of the sword. In the middle of the battlefield, Qasim goes to fix his sandal, to tie it back on his feet. As his attention is on his sandal, جاءه لعين بسيفه وضرب قاسم على رأسه. The cursed soldier, he comes forward, raises his sword and strikes Qasim on his head. Wa musibata. Qasim, he falls from the horse, crying out, Adrikni ya Amma. Come to my help, my uncle. Imam Hussein, he rides his horse and charges the battlefield. The enemy soldiers, they see Imam Hussein coming, charging at them. The cowards, they run in every direction. The horses are moving in every side of the battlefield. As their feet are stomping on the ground, the sand of Karbala is rising in the air, until finally Al-Hussein arrives, where he heard the sound of Qasim, but the sands of Karbala are in the air. He cannot see the body. There is no sign of where is Qasim. He says, Qasim, raise your voice and call to your uncle. Tell me where you are. But the sand finally settles, the dust settles back down to the ground. There is the body of Qasim. Imam Hussein comes to the body. The body has been broken into pieces. The horses that were going in every direction, running from the charge of Al-Hussein, have trampled on the body of Qasim ibn al-Hasan. فأخذ بجثمان الغلام ورفعه مولانا الحسين إلى صدره. Imam Hussein picked up the body, carried it on his chest. The legs are dragging in the sand. How will he go back to the tent of Farwa? How will he tell Zainab al-Kubra and Kulthum? ألا ولعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. واه قاسم يا حسين.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے 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 اس گھڑی روئے بہت اس گھڑی روئے بہت شیخ کو حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے اس گھڑی روئے بہت اس گھڑی روئے بہت شیخ کو حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے اس گھڑی روئے بہت اس گھڑی روئے بہت شیخ کو حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے مہندی ارمانوں کی ہاتھوں میں لگا کر مانے مہندی ارمانوں کی ہاتھوں میں لگا کر مانے سہرا ماتھے پہ ہے سہرا ماتھے پہ سجایا تو حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے آئے قاسم نہ تیرے ٹکڑے بدن کے ہوتے آئے قاسم نہ تیرے ٹکڑے بدن کے ہوتے رو کے سینے سے ہے رو کے سینے سے لگایا تو حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے ٹکڑے قاسم کے چنے اور ابا میں ڈالے ٹکڑے قاسم کے چنے اور ابا میں ڈالے باندھ کر لاشا ہے باندھ کر لاشا اٹھایا تو حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا
حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے فیضی شبیر جو قاسم کا جنازہ لائے فیضی شبیر جو قاسم کا جنازہ لائے زخمی تیروں کے ہے زخمی تیروں کے جنازے میں حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے قاسم نہ تیرے ٹکڑے بدن کے ہوتے ہائے قاسم نہ تیرے ٹکڑے بدن کے ہوتے رو کے سینے سے ہے رو کے سینے سے لگایا تو حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے لاشا قاسم کا نظر آیا حسن یاد آئے یا حسین حسین حسین
چلا رن کو تیرا بابا سکینہ 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 نہ اکبر ہے نہ عباس دلاور نہ اکبر ہے نہ عباس دلاور نہ ہے اور نہ محمد اور نہ اصغر نہ ہے اور نہ محمد اور نہ اصغر سر مختل ہوں میں تنہا سکینہ چلا رن کو تیرا بابا سکینہ چلا رن کو تیرا بابا سکینہ چچا جو ناز اٹھاتا تا تمہارے وہ جا کر سو گیا دریا کنارے تجھے اب چھوڑ کر تنہا سکینہ چلا رن کو تیرا بابا سکینہ چلا رن کو تیرا بابا سکینہ ستمگر آئیں گے خیمے جلانے ستمگر آئیں گے خیمے جلانے چلیں گے تجھ پہ بیٹی تازیانے ملے گا یوں تجھے پرسا سکینہ چلا رن کو تیرا بابا سکینہ چلا رن کو تیرا بابا سکینہ کوئی اب تجھے کو بہلا ہے تو کیسے میری بیٹی کو نیند آئے تو کیسے میری بیٹی کو نیند آئے تو کیسے نہ ہوگا اب میرا سینہ سکینہ چلا رن کو تیرا بابا سکینہ چلا رن کو مواقفه تكاينگی تماچے تیرے رخسار ہو جائیں گے نیلے دلاسا کون اب دیں گا سکینہ تیرا بابا سکینہ ستم ظالم بہت دیں گا بی بی پلٹ کر ہم نہ اب آئیں گا بی بی صدا ہم کو نہ اب دیں گا سکینہ شاہ سلام علیہ شبیر و شبر سلام حیدر و صفدر سلام شاہ کے دلبر سلام اکبر و اصغر سلام پیاس سکینہ سلام زینب کلثوم سلام آقا قمبر سلام شاہ سلام علیہ ہوڑے دلاور سلام شیعوں کے مولا سلام شاہ سلام علیہ شاہ سلام علیہ شاہ سلام علیہ حسین 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 حسین
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وحبيبك وصفيك ونبيك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك وعلى أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب ورحمة الله وبركاته وعلى الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين وعلى سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة ورحمة الله وبركاته وعلى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتك السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته اللهم وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي والمهدي الإمام القائم صاحب العصر والزمان الأمان 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 من زوال الإيمان وفتن الزمان عجل الله تعالى فرجه وسخل الله مخرجه وجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والذابين عنه والمسارعين إليه في قضاء حوائجه والمستشهدين بين يديه جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته اللهم صل